I want to start by saying that I'm very honored to be here. I'm leaving tomorrow morning for France with my team to paint another one of these amazing murals, and I can't think of a better way to start my 2-week adventure than by sharing with you guys how it is I get to do what I do and why I do it. My name is Fluke. I'm a young entrepreneur. I'm the owner of ashop.ca, and I'm also a graffiti artist. I started doing graffiti when I was 9 years old, and like every kid who starts out painting, doing graffiti, I started doing it in my neighborhood, and painting in the parks, and in the schoolyards, and bus booths, and benches, and wherever I can write my name, I just had an obsession with doing that. And as I started getting older, I realized that I needed to find bigger spaces and better spaces where I can create these more intricate and elaborate designs that I had in my mind. And actually migrated to abandoned warehouses and abandoned buildings that there were a lot of them in Montreal at the time. The Red Pact Sugar Factory that some of you might know that was turned into condos later on. It was a mecca for graffiti artists in the late 80s and early 90s. And a lot of urban artists started painting there. And that's when I truly fell in love with graffiti and urban art and the freedom of being able to explore my creative process without anybody telling me how to do it. And I would spend all my time doing that. I would skip school to go paint. I would sneak out of my parents' home when I was a kid to go paint. I would do anything to just spend entire days painting these walls. And this really, it became the single most important thing in my life. And this is, I'm speaking about a 14-year-old kid here. I'm sorry, a little bit nervous. When I was getting older, I realized that the adult figures in my life, my parents, my teachers, the police officers, social workers, you name it, they kept telling me that if I wanted to do something positive with my life, if I wanted to be somebody, I needed to stop thinking about painting graffiti and stop doing that because it was childish, irresponsible, illegal. It definitely wasn't a career option. And that was a problem for me. I had a dilemma on my hands at this point. I wanted to go to school, I wanted to go to college and maybe make it where you guys are sitting today. But when I was introduced to drawing on paper and painting on canvas and maybe using computer screens to illustrate my ideas, I didn't understand that because that's not the language that I spoke. I saw things clearer and bigger in large scale and HD. So many of my teachers didn't get along, even though we had a great relationship as a student-teacher. We didn't get along because we didn't speak that same language, and it was very difficult for me. The only other option that I had, supposedly from my family was coming here or whatnot, was that I had to get a job. So I did that for a bunch of years, and as time passes, you get a job. You guys know how this goes. You get a second job, you have a car, you have an apartment, you have 2 cats, maybe a girlfriend, and so on, and it becomes, your life just takes its toll on you, and I had less and less time to paint in these factories and less time to do what I really was passionate about. And that, I don't know how to explain this to you guys, it made me unhappy with who I was. I felt like my true nature was not being fully taken advantage of. And so slowly what happened was this snowballed effect over the years into a really long, exhausting battle with depression. Through therapy and the strong support system and through good friends, I was able to figure out that this is something I didn't want in my life, and I wanted to definitely change how things were going, and I wanted to, get creative again. So I spent the next 6 years of my life really grinding away at my artwork and really trying to understand what my role was, what my place was within my community and within my society. Today I have the highest privilege of owning my own company, working with some of the most talented urban artists in my city. I have my own studio space. We have an office. We have conference rooms. We have a soon-to-come art gallery that's going to give a place and a voice to young upcoming artists. We also co-organize one of the coolest graffiti festivals in Montreal every year that brings together a lot of big names in the urban art scene in the world, all the way to Montreal to shine and show what they can do and communicate between themselves. I also get to go to schools, and I get to talk to kids about art and about the things I care about as well. I had a chance to meet with different city officials on different levels to see how we can better communicate and better understand the usage of our public spaces. Now, this is very far, This is very far from what I was told as a kid. Wow. Wow, okay. It's very, very, very far from what I was told as a kid. As a matter of fact, it's the complete opposite of what my life is predicted to be like if I continued thinking about painting on walls. Through my experiences, I've learned a few things. One, that no one can predict your future. Two, that our school systems need a bit of work. We all know this, and I salute Sir Ken Robinson for stressing that point. We know that not all kids learn the same way, but yet we still continue teaching with the same one-size-fits-all method. I think we need to spend a little bit of time maybe preparing our kids, maybe in high school already. We should start preparing them on the challenges that face them as young adults in a professional setting. A suggestion coming from a guy like me is we can already start preparing them for Plan B. What if spending all our time on preparing them for college to maybe get to university, to potentially get a job that they might like for the rest of their lives? What if that doesn't work out? Maybe if that's not the best solution for them, we need to start spending a bit of time on Plan B, on different options. So a suggestion would be that we can maybe give them some pointers on starting your own business, building good credit, developing social skills, public speaking maybe. You know, these are things that can help you along your life if you so choose not to go on in an academic setting. Sorry, again. I'll be long. Be patient. I already said all this. I will to the end. All right, so my past experience, what they helped me figure it out, right. So I also figured out that there's a long way to go as to how we interact with urban art, public art, and our public spaces. We've become desensitized by what's happening around us in our surroundings, specifically in big metropolises and in big cities, as to when it comes to architecture and our public spaces. When we paint these large murals, in the beginning process, when we start setting up the scaffolding and we start painting the first coat of paint and doing the initial design, people who pass by, they don't really pay attention to what we're doing. They don't really care. You know, they just think that we're bombarding them with another ad campaign, or it's a stunt for some kind of new product, or that, we're just changing the color of the building. Once the days go by and they start realizing that, the image starts getting clearer and they realize that this is not the case, they start asking questions. And this is a communication that we like to have with, the citizens around the walls. And, they come back every day. And they start asking, how's the evolution going? Is there a meaning behind the wall? Is there a story behind this? Who are the artists? What does it represent? How can I help? How can I give you my input? And it becomes an interactive thing between the citizens and the artists. Once the wall's completed, we also realize that there's a sense of ownership that's established between the citizens and the mural, because they feel they've been a part of the process, a part of the planning process. And we also notice that sometimes they treat it as if it was a landmark in their neighborhood. And in some cases, they even start to take better care of the building because they feel like they have something to maintain now because they were a part of that. This is part of them as well. It represents them in their neighborhoods, right? So, obviously, this is one of the most rewarding parts of my job. This is what I'm probably the most passionate about now. But painting these large murals is not the hardest part. Believe it or not, these guys, these artists are willing to paint these things like this. They've been doing it their whole lives. Finding the right places in an architectural setting and actually getting paid respectfully as an artist is one of the hardest challenges that we face today. One of the reasons being is that our work has no commercial value. Our work is not trying to advertise or sell anything to anybody. The mural itself is not actually generating any money for anybody. So it's not interesting for anyone. As a matter of fact, the murals can evoke emotion. They can tell a story. They can change how people feel about a wall or a street corner in their neighborhoods. They can even spread an idea like TED. And sadly, these are not the priorities. It's not the number one thing in a capitalist system to care about. Who's going to invest for that? Who's going to pay for happiness? Or just beauty? Not many people. I'm doing this. I'm actually doing this. I'm talking to you guys. I got it. So, put this down. Put this in. So you guys get my point, right? At this point. So, with everything I just said, we realize one thing is that we're oversaturated with fierce advertising and sometimes boring architecture. And over time, we've just learned to accept that and settle with that because we've been born in this situation. The buildings that we live with today, most of them in general, have been there since we were born. And we're scared to modify things. We're scared to get involved and change things. We're also sometimes very little involved in the creative process when it comes to urban planning, and we're very little, our opinion is very little asked of us when it comes to what do you think of this design? You know, like for example, when is the last time an ad company asked you guys, well, what do you think of this 2-story half-naked woman selling this pair of jeans that I'm going to put on a billboard in front of your window? I don't mind, to be honest. But I'm sure that if I had a 5-year-old kid in my house, my opinion would be completely different. And so we need to get involved on that level. We need to let our opinions be known. And no one's going to come ask you for your opinion. So we need to make sure that we say what we need to say when it's time to say it. And you know what? There's even harder part. There's a harder challenge to what I do. And in Montreal, for example, we'll start with Montreal. In Montreal, there's different bylaws. Every cities have their own bylaws as to when it comes to what can and cannot happen on a visual level, on an aesthetic level in their neighborhoods. For example, in LaSalle, where I grew up, in Montreal, from the day I started scribbling on walls, I already knew that I will never be able to go and paint a 5-story mural in my own neighborhood to show my citizens what I can do because the bylaw forbidden it. On an architectural level, you can change the facades, So, but in Artiste Maisonneuve, where I have my studio, it's a more creative, more free-spirited neighborhood, and those don't really care about that yet. That's going to come in 10 years when they start building more condos. But for now, it's like, they're taking it easy. So, and we realize that there's more artists there, there's more creativity, there's a little bit more free-spiritednness to the businesses that are opening there, and the types of developments that are happening. You notice places like in Brazil, where graffiti artists are actually heroes of their neighborhood because they're the storytellers, they're the public's voice. Places where your opinion cannot be heard. You can't freely speak how you want to speak. So graffiti artists serve as that tool to say what needs to be said. Political message, war stories, you name it. From the peace signs in the 60s to caveman drawings on walls to hieroglyphics, graffiti's been around for a long, long, long time. So I guess what I'm trying to say with all this is that we need to get involved. We need to not be afraid to change what things look like in our neighborhoods. Okay? We need to start reclaiming our public space as actual public space. Just like in the real sense, the true sense of graffiti, we need to start taking back those spaces in hopes that one day these spaces will be an actual reflection of the public and not their creators. Also, and I'm concluding finally, we need to spend some more time with our kids on a creative level. The same way we would encourage our children to kick a ball in our backyard, play, because it's good for their health. Because if they scratch their knee, it's not a big deal. We need to treat our kids the same way when it comes to the arts. Painting, screaming, dancing, getting messy. it's not a big deal. And we need to not be afraid to encourage them along that path, even if it means that the career, the idea, or the project that they might have in their head is not something that's possible in our time. It might be in theirs. And after all, even if it means making a mess, it's only paint on a wall. Thank you very much. Peace.